Here with, do you mind?
My name is Tish, Prouse, and I am running in Ward 6, which is the downtown ward. So if you live anywhere downtown, south of Kingsway Mall and north of the river, you're probably in this ward. It sort of ties in with who I am, really. I was born and raised in Edmonton, and I did a lot of work abroad. I was an archaeologist with UNESCO, and so I had spent a lot of time in different cultures, in different areas of the world, but primarily along the Silk Road. So countries like Turkey and Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. And I had spent a lot of time there with preserving historical monuments in the face of development. Now, most of the time that was in a context of cities expanding or farmland taking over, old sites. But once in a while, it was very culturally sensitive. So, for example, there would have been a religious monument where a lot of people all of a sudden had an interest in being buried by it. And that burial ground was growing at an astronomical rate to encompass and overrun an entire complex that's historically important to the people that were in the area. And coming home, starting a business to fund my continued work in archaeology, because I was sick of competing for grants among my friends and colleagues and continuously having to write endless papers for the university. I said, if I can fund my own campaign, I don't have to do any of this. So I started a few businesses with my wife, and in so doing, I became reconnected to my community. So I became president of my community league. I started to work a lot more with both social and business issues in town. So I am a small business owner. I have had a lot of interaction with people who are on a retail side, who are on an administrative side, who are in construction, who are looking at international opportunities with their businesses that are either online or online based, and then tying that into what it is that makes Edmonton a place to live. And so that's really the driving force behind is, I guess, coming home and finding my place using skills that I've gotten in so many different assets and facets of life. Yeah, I think your readers and the listeners will be quite receptive to this. About many of the candidates at the moment seem to say the same type of thing. There's a lack of accountability among the way the city is running. So, for example, if you live on 127th Street and 119th Avenue and you're coming downtown, why does it take you an hour to sit on the bus when the city has been planning and working with mass transit for years? This is not a difficult... it's very easy to criticize and say, well, it's not difficult, but things like that, when you had a plan that worked at one point, and you have so many examples of how people are making these changes, why does it take so long to do this? When we take so long and then when we put money behind it, why do we screw up other systems like traffic? And now we have large traffic queues in some areas. In some instances, we have emergency services that are completely rerouting their routes, specifically the Royal Alec Emergency Service, to avoid transportation projects. And that can be incredibly dangerous. Imagine if you had 2 minutes to live and your ambulance had to reroute 3 minutes instead of a 30-second crossing because the LRT's stuck. I mean, this is a thing that many candidates and many people in town realize. There's a lack of accountability, there's a lack of fiscal prudence, and that even though our city's on the right track and we are trying to do a lot of good things, we're missing an integral and accountable leadership to drive these projects home. In the downtown ward, one of the biggest things people see is the amount of homeless people there are, the people who are almost homeless, experiencing homeless, people that have mental illness, people that use drugs. And this is a program that Edmonton has funded with hundreds of millions of dollars, as well as taken provincial and federal money. And people in 8 years are saying, well, I don't really see a difference. In fact, I think it's getting worse. But yet administration is saying that it's doing a much better job. So My platform is one of proper leadership through accountability. Not only holding what I say accountable, but very much holding what our city is going to do accountable. That means some very severe criticism back. That means some integral investigating on what's presented to a council person for information to make a decision on. My academic background gives me that skill to look really deep into material quite easily, but at the same time knowing the business angle. So the platform really rests on having a very good balance to understanding how money needs to be spent and operate, while at the same time being able to examine details on a relatively sophisticated level.
What would you say differentiates, makes you stand apart from the other candidates running in the same ward with you?
Diversity. So there are 3 candidates that are running in the downtown ward. There's the current incumbent, there is a philanthropic business person, and there's myself. Now, this is sort of funny. We're all British descendant white males between the age of 38 and 60. So your choice is very limited as far as who's ethnically more in tune with people in town. And I think that's the first thing that differentiates me from the other 2 candidates, is that I not only have worked abroad with a vast array of cultures, I speak several languages. Mm-hmm. And this is really important to people downtown because it means that I've had it in my training, in my practical lifestyle for years, to understand how to modify my listening and communication skills with the different people that make up our community, so that when we're having problems, like safe injection sites, that one single approach to explaining what it is that the city is looking at doing, or what the province or the federal government is wanting to do, cannot be used for all the different groups of people that reside within an area that's affected. But I'm much more able to do that. And when you have someone like me, you avoid a lot of the problems that we're currently having. And that is the single greatest asset that I have over my other competitors. But I'm going to give you a second one. Okay. And the second one is that I'm the only candidate that has a deep history in this city. I'm a 5th generation Edmontonian. Wow. My great-great-grandparents came here and broke ground just outside of what was then the town limits. My great-great-grandfather mined for coal in what is now downtown. This is a place where my family has decided they are going to reside for a great length of time. And there's a continual mindset about what our city is, what community means, how we interact and operate as a city, which is inherent in what we do in community and in our own business. And that sense lies much more deep in me because of my background experiences that I'm able to bring back to my community and make that more smoothly intertwined with what we've got here. So I'm able to take lessons that I've learned abroad for how we're going to build a city, how we're going to grow community. But I'm able to fit it into a model that's comfortable with people who have been here for generations, so that they don't think there's such a radical change happening. They're not focused on one demographic. No one's blaming a developer for coming in and doing something. No one's saying that we're switching social values. Here's an Edmontonian saying this is how we can think of better adapting our city to be stronger on the international stage. The listeners of this video, I assume, are going to be many people who are first-generation Canadians, if not Canadians yet. They may be permanent residents, they may be students living. Some of you who are watching may not feel comfortable voting, that you may not feel comfortable being involved because you can't vote. That would be a mistake. If you can't vote, find somebody to volunteer with. Find an organization to help other people vote. If you're living in this district, there are a lot of people who may be on the verge of poverty or who are vulnerable, who would love some encouragement to walk out to advanced polls to vote. It means a lot to people when they are able to take a day and be equal with everybody else in town. The poorest person in this town for one day is as equal as the richest, because they can give their opinion that matters. And even if you yourself may not be able to do that, by giving other people that power, by becoming part of the system and volunteering, or even spreading a certain message because you resonate more strongly with it, that's the real benefit of having a system like ours. So I would encourage everybody here that even if they can't vote or don't feel comfortable voting, find something you like about a candidate in your area and join them or help them. Or if you find someone you really don't like, find someone else to make sure they don't win. Participate in some way. Help people getting out. And you will have a much more deep, much more enriching, much more positive experience about the city in which you live, which you've chosen to live, which you've chosen to study, than if you just let this pass. So get involved somehow.